Not my internet, it's this 1050 shit.
Oh, well, then upgrade your user interface, alright? Jeez.
Alright,
Right
so...
there.
When it comes to these different games, though, I'm going to say, you know, I really think that people lose sight of the fact that it's really good to have options because people like different styles of play, different like pacing of games. So I don't know how much I can really say about it because it was under NDA, but we tried out the Dungeon Defenders 2 beta or alpha or whatever it is right now. I might have to abandon this quest. I just don't know where to find this thing.
It's in there! I'm telling you, it's a random spawn.
I don't see the question mark, though. I
There's not a question mark for it. It just randomly spawns. It's just like, hey, I'm here.
don't know. Really?
Yes.
Okay, so the Dungeon Defenders 2 beta, their PvP, and it's no secret because they've announced this, so I'm pretty sure I can talk about it, is a Dota-style map. You've got the 3 lanes. Hell, the map even looks like Dota 2's map. Alright, it's the 3 lanes are nearly identical, large jungle. And the thing about their control scheme is that you're always in a third-person camera. So it plays control-wise a little like Smite. But it has a click interface a lot like Dota and League. But it does have skill shots too, so you have to kind of point the abilities you want to use in the right direction. And the thing is, though, because it plays a lot like
Isometric real-time action strategy PvP.
yeah, it's awesome. We were talking about that once. Is what we were talking about that once. Is what do you call? It was the end of one of the live stream nights. We were talking about what do you call it? Is it an action RPG? Or is it not? Because action RPG can mean Diablo and it can also mean Neverwinter.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
what's the difference? One's a point and click interface. One's not. But the pacing is in their beta was so deliberately slow as to match playing like Dota and League, because the characters move a bit slower in those. I mean, because it's an RTS style. So it felt weird to me. But it had that third-person camera thing of Smite, so it felt familiar as well. So I kind of enjoyed it, even though it took a little getting used to. And I think that's the thing, is that games that change up the gameplay like that will definitely have a spot, you know, no matter how similar they might be to others.
I'm just glad that we have more games and more options coming out because, let's face it, World of Warcraft was very stagnant for a very long time until we started seeing some of the other MMOs come out that offered different ideas. And now look how much the game has changed because of all those other games that have come out, and they're like, oh yeah, that's a good idea, we should do that.
Well, we all know Blizzard is the king of appropriating game ideas into their game.
It's true. But I mean, it's actually good to have, so I'm very glad there's this wide variety of stuff out there. I just wish it all wasn't so, well, on the free-to-play side, so bloody freaking expensive, or had some, like, 1 or 2 little issues that irritated the hell out of me to the point I don't want to play the games. That's the irritating thing for me.
Well, that was actually something I meant to go into a bit here that I didn't get I kind of forgot to go into was one of the things that annoys me a bit about free-to-play games is that they are designed to make you pay more than you would pay for a standard game.
Yes, and that is the irritating part for me.
And that's what I was trying to get into when I was talking about doing the Game of the Year edition of Smite, or Tribes, and then of course paying for Smite, was that you really don't have a way to pay for the game. Like, I paid my $60 in Neverwinter, but I cannot get the stuff that I want to actually play the game proper, like the respecs, for free. I still have to, you know, pay for that stuff, which means I've already paid $60, the price of a full game, but now I need to start paying their microtransactions for some of the stuff I want to do. And I honestly feel that the microtransactions in Neverwinter, I just don't like the way they're doing that. I love the game to death, but I just don't like the way they're doing that, because it really feels like they're forcing you to do it. You cannot craft high-level materials without getting those stuff. Anyway, you end up having to pay more through those transactions because you have no way of just saying, hey, I want to pay for this game, I want to buy this game. And you can't do that. You have to do the microtransactions. You end up paying, and that's how they get you. You never pay attention to what you're spending in the game. You end up paying a couple $100 for a game that, if it were not a free-to-play game, you might have only spent $60-70 on. And so I feel like the problem we're running across now is too many people are jumping to the free-to-play model when they don't need to be free-to-play. They could still make it a full-fledged game, you know?
Yes, absolutely. And, and then the other part that comes into that, I think there's this big shift from free-to-play because, first we had those AAA titles that were just, as our commenter said, you bought the game and that was it. You played it, you had a fun time. Then came along DRM. And then came along the lovely expansions. Your little micro upgrades. Thank you, Microsoft, so much for those. And then you've got your, add-on, because you had add-on packs, right? That was the first thing that came out. And then you started releasing games that already had content to unlock, like BioWare right off the bat. Oh yeah, we shipped a game. It didn't include that on the disc. Yes, it did. Stuff like that. So it's interesting to see the dynamic on the push there to go from the old days of buy the game, that was it, to here's the game. Oh, by the way, here's some more DRM friendly stuff to add to your game to enhance it. Let's take it a step. It's just like progressed.
Oh yeah, it's funny that you mentioned it because I was thinking not too long ago about how this has gone. Like when the first expansion packs ever came out for a PC game, I sat there and I thought to myself, that is such a ripoff. Why would I pay extra money for a game that I'm already playing?
Exactly.
This, so it was like at the time seemed so bad, but look at how it's progressed. What seemed so bad then seems so great now. But that's because it's evolved, right? When the expansion packs came out first, you kind of had to look at the value we're getting there. And the expansion packs are actually generally good because they typically gave you a lot of content for what they charged you. Like, hell, look at Lord of Destruction for Diablo, right?
Yeah.
Tons of content. Of course, that might not be a good example because Blizzard typically charges you a bit more for an expansion than other companies do, but they give you a lot more for the value, typically.
Yeah.
But now it's gone to this DLC realm, and then you start thinking, oh, wait, DLC. Ooh, bad.
I'm taking a step further and blaming DRM, not just DLC, not the digital license content, but the DRM. When we had Microsoft started pushing Zune and realistically Apple and all those guys on the MP3 market to say, hey, in order to own this, you have to buy it, and you lease it from us. You don't actually own it. That was the start of it all. That was when Microsoft. That's when we started seeing DLC packs for games come out. You could buy videos and rent videos now, and the video rental cost is obscene, still is. And that was the start of it, in my opinion. Was the DRM, and of course there was this move. Thank God for certain things like audio to move away from DRM and go back to what it was beforehand. But it caused the DLC craze to start to show up. Hey, we could add a little bit more to our game. You could only get it if you have this license key, if it's validated against our servers, blah, blah, blah. I still have a real problem with that because the DLC is no longer an upgrade, if you will. It is something that is there from the get-go of the start of the game.
Yeah, that annoys me. The idea of buying extra content after a release doesn't bother me so much. DLC in and of itself does not bother me so much. What is being done with DLC bothers me a little bit because, like, the idea, like the Disc 1 DLC, like Mass Effect. Seriously, you basically took something that was proven to be on the disc, by the way, like you said, and you're charging people extra money for that now, for something that they should have gotten on, because you. Now, I understand game development cycles worked where once you're done with a certain amount of content, you're ready to release the game. The game may not be out to the public yet. You've got time to actually work on something, and you may even finish that content as the game is hitting the shelf. Okay, that's fine. And that was their story. But then it was proven
free to everybody as an update patch.
Well, the thing is even then, I could have half understood that because EA. But it was then proven that they lied about that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the problem I have. Is like I said, you've got the DLC craze.
Oh, yeah.
And the DRM that is like right on top of it, which just screws everything up.
Thank you, Mad Prophet. That's an excellent example. Metro Last Light in its Ranger mode.
Yes.
And this is a pre-purchase incentive, which, by the way, pre-purchases and basically pre-ordering games in general has become kind of a nasty business as well. It used to be a way to put money down over time for something you wanted to buy. Now it's a way to entice people to buy things by giving them trinkets.
And I thought way around that. By the way, if you want to pre-purchase a game on like Steam, say, reserve it at GameStop, and then pay all your money like you normally would at GameStop, and then when you want to go buy it on Steam, the night before or the day before, cancel out your order with a GameStop and change it to a Steam wallet. You'll still get the all the benefits of both EA games and Steam.
Interesting.
Or not EA games, sorry, GameStop and Steam.
But
yeah,
this whole Ranger mode, right, thing is it's a content that was made for the game, which, keep in mind, I haven't played Metro. I got all this a lot like kind of secondhand. But from what I understand, in the last games that had Ranger mode, it was considered to be the definitive way to play this game. Okay? So you're basically taking something that the fan base considers to be the pure way to play the game. You're taking it out, adding it as a pre-order bonus for the people that want to basically follow you like legions of drones. For those that don't get there on time, you have to pay extra for it. How is that honest? How does that work? You know, it's like this is a game mode that people consider definitive of a series, and you're going to make them pay extra for it. I mean, sure, they're going to give it away to the people that pre-ordered, but that's still it's shady to me. It just doesn't.
To me, they operate like Spirit. It seems to be the game companies, instead of saying, this is our product, we stand behind it, they're like, this is our product, it's better if you get this, this, and this, though. Oh, and by the way, to get this, this, and this, you either got to pay more, or like you said, be a religious zealot and follow us.
Yeah.
And to me, that rings of business practices in general, like Spirit Airlines. They, look at what they do. They're the ones who have ruined the aviation industry, saying, we will pay for bags. You will pay if you miss your flight double. We will pay if you're stupid and have a screaming kid. Stuff like that. And it's become the normal. Pay to get anywhere anymore. It's really kind of
as a rock and almost
sad.
As smart.
The AAA, I think the big AAA titles that are the $60 pay once, no DRM, no DLC. Those are gone. We're going to be lucky if we start getting AAA titles in the $60 format anymore. Because EA has openly said, nope, it's going to become free-to-play. Everything. Fuck, the new Crysis 3 is going to be free-to-play.
I'm impressed.
Already announced. Or 4, whatever Crysis they're on. The next one. It's already going to be free-to-play. And I'm not sure how I feel about that. Especially with the track record of the DLC.
Yeah. Well, and here's something that could turn some things around, though, aside from doing this whole free-to-play model. Again, referencing to Total Biscuit, and this also references into Far Cry. Far Cry 3, Blood Dragon. Okay? Let's talk about that one. Technically, not DLC. Standalone game, right?
Yes.
However, it's a game that was made off the assets of Far Cry 3, and therefore isn't exactly an entirely new game. So what they did is they took Far Cry 3, took the assets from it, created a new game, but because it wasn't 100% new, didn't have all the development costs that were involved with Far Cry, they were able to release it as a reduced price, and the game itself was smaller, so it wasn't... there was no need to charge full price for it, because it was meant to be kind of a bite-sized chunk of game. And they're making a profit off of that. And I think that if they did this more often, and again, this is not my idea, I got this totally from TV, and I agree with his assessment on this. If companies would take a game that they've already created, take the assets of that game, and use it to create other games, smaller games, not big games, because again, we talked about how gamers don't have as much time nowadays.
Typically, yeah.
Make a smaller game. And so, like, for example, Far Cry Blood Dragon, you can get a Far Cry experience without having to pay for the whole Far Cry package and without having to go through the entire Far Cry game. I mean, you would get the essential experience for it.
Okay, here's a problem with that. Add the whole mix of what you just said. Yeah, it sounds great for everybody all the way around. Add the bean counters. Why would they do that when they can continue to make $60 off of something that cost them less to produce and make with a bigger profit margin?
Okay, if the bean counters are smart, they would look into things
your
like
first mistake.
yeah, exactly. But they would look into studies, for example, like let's talk about the used games thing that's been an argument lately. All right, people getting
too. Yeah, it keeps coming up. It's interesting how often that keeps coming up.
People are very upset about the fact that they might lose used games in the future. By the way, nothing is totally proven yet. The only things that we know so far, and this is what sucks, is because Microsoft has not been forthcoming about their Xbox One information. I don't know why they're hiding information still. The best thing,
because they don't know what they want to do themselves.
That's entirely possible. The problem is by being ambiguous, they're causing a lot of issues.
Oh, I agree.
But all we know really about the Xbox One so far is it's going to supposedly call home once a day. If it doesn't, it may become inoperable. This could tie into DRM, where games will not be allowed to be used on the system. So the one example that they gave was you have a game, right? You put it in your Xbox, but if you put it into a friend's Xbox, they would have to pay a fee to activate the game and play it. However, if you logged in with your profile, since you've already unlocked the game, you could play it.
Of course I had nothing.
Okay, so it's locked to your account.
With their new roaming profile, it shouldn't be a big issue. That's the argument. Yeah.
But here's the thing, right? So we talk about this as being a device to eliminate used games. There is a study out that says that video game companies would profit from the reduction of used games, but not just a wholesale reduction in used games. You would have to accompany that reduction in used games with a reduction in new game price.
Yes.
So, and I agree with that because I think about my business interactions in the past, my purchasing of games. I would sell games for maybe a scant $15, $20 off a new game I'm purchasing. If they reduce prices of a new game by a third, $20, I mean, that's quite a bit.
Tell you what, the one thing the mobile market has proved is that you can produce near quality AAA games with less overall overhead costs from development because they can be shorter, charge a fraction of what they would, and make a hell of a lot more money. Like tremendous amounts more money. Gameloft they make a whole bunch of games for the mobile platform. They're one of the biggest ones out there. EA tried to buy them, and Gameloft laughed at the amount of money that EA offered. Said, we're worth probably 50 times that, because the amount of money that they charge for games, people are willing to say, hey, this is a 3-hour game. Sure. All right, 3 hours. Okay, $5. Done. Not a no-brainer. And of course, they come out with some games that are like BioWare came out with their whole port, like I was talking about earlier. That is the what is it? The Star Wars, the new Star Wars one that just came out. The new old game, the ported one. $10. In the amount of time that it's already sold copies, it's more than made what the original game that was on PC made. So people are willing to pay for something if it's a little bit less. And not even just a little bit less. Like I said, $20, you would have a lot more sales.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing, is I think about the games I buy, like, what prohibits me from buying new games nowadays? Certainly I could buy a game for $60, but if I saw a game for $40, I might be more inclined to buy that game instead.
See, part of the argument with the Xbox that I've heard, that I've read on, and why they're hesitating on with the whole call home thing and whatnot, is if they get rid of discs and they go to downloads only. Yes, there's always the fear that you cannot, sell a game back, blah blah blah. But their argument, Microsoft's argument to counter this, is that it'll be, of course, up to the publishers, and that's the problem, I think, is that the whole point of doing this was greatly lower the cost of distribution, which is what's keeping the game cost up. I mean, but that's the thing is, are publishers really going to say, hey, now that we don't have to produce discs, we don't have that overhead, they're going to be greedy and they're going to want their $60 still, even though it's only digital. I have a feeling.
Well, therein lies the problem. And
Kill the market.
the thing is it's been proven, and that's kind of the sad part. It has been proven that these price reductions on new games can increase profitability. And if they eliminate the used game sales, right, then that would really improve their profit margin, because you're basically eliminating a lot of the problem that you're having right now, which is people will trade in games and you'll lose. You know, once that game has been sold, they no longer get revenue on it, right? So if it gets traded to somebody else, you know, Bethesda or whoever, they're never going to see revenue on that game again. So you eliminate the loss there. And then you reduce the new game prices, people buy more. And it just works. And the poster child for this is Steam. It is quite literally Steam. You cannot trade Steam games, but people buy Steam games all the time, especially when they go on sale. How many companies have made so much money because they offered a Steam sale? Their downloads go to the top of the charts when they're on sale.
Yeah, it kills the server. Well, it kills Steam's download server, yeah, which are some of the best in the world. So it's very interesting to see the dynamic between big head companies like EA and whatnot saying, we're going to do this, and, you know, flying in the face of the opposite flag when there's so much support and opposition to do it the other way, and yet they're sticking to their guns. My fear with the whole Xbox thing and doing that, and they've had some pretty good political pressure here from the government. I get to hear about it with some of the people I work with, is that not only by doing this are they eliminating, you know, they're increasing their profits and whatnot, but they're eliminating jobs is the other side of the argument, because GameStop and GameStop employees will basically become useless, you know, and now you have to fill a void. Well, how do you do that? Well, argument can be made saying, all right, put that money back into education, whatever, you know. So to me, it's a pointless argument that they're worried about, but Microsoft actually has to listen to it. And that's the part that interests me, is how much politics actually goes into these stupid gaming systems. I mean, even to the point of memory. Like, I can tell you about this now because it was for the Xbox. But when the Xbox, the new slim Xbox was being made, one of the guys that I flew back and forth worked for the company that was making the memory for it. And because the company was in another country, there was a ton of politics that was involved, even into reducing the cost. And they were talking about pennies to the dollar, but that changed the average cost of the system by $5 for you and for our end user cost. That's pretty significant. And yeah, it goes to show that little things can affect, you know, the whole market, the whole gaming market. When you've got people saying, we're not willing to, you know, buy used games anymore, we want digital downloads, you know, we want to get rid of all that, and then you make the system say, okay, but it's got to call home, you can't access these offline, blah, blah, blah. And now then you're also forcing the person to have an active live internet to play the game. So another cost. So there's just all these little things that tie in that's driving me up the wall with gaming companies lately. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see where it goes, but EA's jumped on board on the fun, lovely, the next several titles, or AAA titles, are going to be free to play, so we'll have to see where it goes. It's going to be really interesting to see where DRM goes in the long run, because it's here to stay, unfortunately, and I am not a big fan of it.
Well, and right now a lot of this is speculation, and here's the thing, is this whole thing about eliminating used games is really arguments based on limited information, and this is why I say it's really sad that Microsoft hasn't released a final statement, because the truth of the matter is they really haven't said that they're eliminating used games. The most that's really come out of them is what they want to do is add some kind of tax or cut to what game companies like GameStop get. So basically they're saying, okay, you want to resell this game? Fine, we want to cut at that, which of course will drive the price up of used games. But that's still a little better than eliminating them wholesale. But again, I still think the idea behind eliminating used games but reducing new game cost may actually be the way to go, because I think, again, of my own habits, what I do, and I think, you know what, it's true. If I could get games for $20 off, I would be more inclined to buy them
Here's another interesting thing with DRM that can be done when implemented properly, and it's something that is actually, I'm surprised you haven't heard about it. It's something that Apple is toying around with, and they're not sure if they're going to do this or not, but they put a lot of literature out about it saying, hey, we're thinking about doing this and trying to get feedback on it. With DRM, you have the capability of saying, okay, this user bought this, right? Okay, this user wants to, let's say you then create a digital used store, if you will, okay? And that's where a person purchases the title for the full price, whatever it is. In Apple's case, they're thinking about doing this with books, for having a used bookstore, with their iBooks. So basically, you buy a copy. It's DRM. You can't transfer. You can see it on any device. You can play it anywhere because of the whole roaming profiles, all that crap. So just like we were talking about earlier, you could take it over to a friend's house, play it there as long as you know your profile. No problem. Your friend wants to buy the game, and you're done with the game. You could sell the game to a used, game store or bookstore or whatever. In this case, again, books for them. And then you also have the ability to trade a book for X number of time. When you trade it, you can no longer play it. You still technically own it, but you can't play it until that trade is done or the lending is done. On the flip side of that, you want to sell it, you get a couple of bucks back to go buy a new AAA title, whatever you want to do, you get a couple bucks back. Then they have a used game or used bookmark segment where a person can go in and buy that digital copy of a used game for a much reduced price. Say, in the books case, it's going to be about $1. However, they only have access to view that book for 3 months. After that, they either got to buy another used copy, or they got to buy the full thing if they want to keep it permanently. But if they implemented something like that with games, like I said, could be done with any digital cart really, DRM then becomes useful again and helps the whole industry out, and there's no reason that you still couldn't have like a GameStop and they just deal with digital licenses instead of physical CD key media. So they would just deal, because they're already starting to do that with like the Steam Wallet. When you buy a gift card in Steam at EA Games, they print you out a receipt with a little code. You don't get a card or anything. There's no physical media. So that's the way I could see it going in the long run, if implemented correctly. So, but the downside there again, you're required internet connection to play a game, to check that code. Make sure you're legit.
Now I fully understand Microsoft's position, or at least the engineer that summarily got fired because of his tweets. That in today's world, you are more inclined to find a person with at least a decent internet connection, one that you could reliably have on from day to day. Maybe not always, but from one day to the next, typically yes. But it's not guaranteed. Outages do happen, and there are situations such as, say, military bases. From what I understand,
I can tell you from being a pilot that bullshit that those guys are spouting, saying the average person has internet, is fucking wrong. The average U.S. citizen is lucky to have internet. If you go overseas, all bets are off. It's not even close. From just my travels around to different places, different businesses, it's about half and half. It really is. Right. You grew up in Alaska, yeah, good luck.
My point on that though is being that things are improving to where we're in a much better space. It's kind of like Steam back when it needed a broadband connection. When that first happened, I hated it because it's like, well, we're just not everybody's off of modems yet. But as technology progresses, we have to start looking at, we can actually start using it. But again, I'm not saying I agree with the statements. I'm just saying that I can understand where some of that thought comes from. And
some may get to free internet, open, as an open source thing provided as a public utility or a public service. I wouldn't be surprised in the future to happen.
Oh, was that his ultimate? That was pretty cool.
That was pretty cool, yeah.
I had no idea that's what was happening. I'm like, wait, what's War Machine and all these guys doing here? That was awesome, actually.
See, he's not interesting. Because this is another end boss here, right?
This is kind of a sub boss here. We fought Doc Ock. This is Lizard.
He's not the main boss.
Oh,
from what I'm noticing when you play here, it seems like when you get to the bosses, again, kind of like Diablo 3 had the problem, there's a big disparity of the power that they do and the damage they do compared to the regular mobs. I'm seeing that again with this.
Will he be able to get me up? He may not be able to. Alright, if he stays alive, I'll just come back to him then.
It's really, though, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with this whole... We're at a very interesting time for both gaming because, as you know, as the core gaming group is getting older, we're now the average core gaming group is in the 30s. They all have jobs. Most of us have jobs. You know, things like that. So it is very interesting to see the split between the younger gaming groups, the older core gamers, which is where they still realistically make most of their money, is us. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with all these pushes for.
Oh, this guy is annoying. Holy crap, he is annoying.
Yeah, how the hell do you hit him?
I'm hitting him, but, well, what's happening is I'm poisoning him with my slow thing. But anytime I go in for a punch, I can only get maybe like one hit off.
That's what I mean. I mean, if that other ranged guy wasn't there, you'd be having a hard time with this. Well, actually, maybe not, because then he'd stay on you more, maybe. I don't know. Hard to tell. It seems to be splitting his focus between you two. I can tell you the scary move that a lot of companies are seeing worldwide, because the U.S. started doing it first, unfortunately, so they're starting to do it elsewhere. And I can tell you this for a fact, flying around the world, is there is a big push overseas now to go to for your wireless internet to go to from unlimited to a X number of data, like 50 gigabytes. There's a big push worldwide for that now because, of course, the U.S. started doing it with Verizon being the very first ones, unfortunately. So it's going to be interesting because that's yet another way they're exploiting the systems right now for not just gamers, everybody.
Let's see what I got. Plus 24 to mental damage, 3% chance to knock attacker into the air when you hit.
You already do that when you uppercut.
Yeah, well, plus I don't do mental damage, so it's kind of pointless for me.
Mental? Who would? Oh, so that's more like your. Okay. Where's your main specs for this guy? Where's the what you're after?
Well, pretty much physical. I mean, because you've got mental damage, you've got energy damage, and energy damage is things like fire, lasers.
Okay.
I don't know. It's not entirely clear what's physical and what's not. Sometimes what's physical, what's mental. I think the games could still use a little bit in the telling you what shit actually is department.
Yeah, I'm noticing an overall lack.
That's a technical term, by the way.
What?
That's the technical term. Telling you what shit is department. That's a very technical term.
Tell you what, it will be interesting though for the next probably 10 years to see where the entire gaming / computer industry goes as a whole worldwide.
Oh, we're at the maintenance window. I'm going to preemptively give me a moment here.
How long are they saying?
It's probably gonna be like a 4-hour window. So hold on 1 second.
So they're still pretty long on this, huh?
There we go. Well, they're releasing a patch today.
Oh, probably the main patch, yeah, because it's release day.
So, yeah, so we've got a patch today, and let me go take a look at those patch notes here while we're here. By the way, everybody, thank you for coming by, and I'm glad we got a good conversation going here. Obviously, not talking as much about Marvel as I figured we would, but it seems like we've got a pretty good conversation going. It seems it's got people interested, so that's always good. We'll see how it goes when I put it up on YouTube, see if people actually care to watch. Let's see. Let me take a look at the Twitter accounts real quick. Yeah, it's going to be down for up to 4 hours, so there's no way I'll be able to be back up when that comes on. So might do a bit more tomorrow. I was hoping to get a bit further, not quite out of that chapter yet. We're at the kind of the very end of that chapter. So yeah, but hey, game's down doesn't mean we have to stop talking or anything like that. But I'm going to bring up Marvel Heroes Let's take a look at what their patch
I
notes
still am
are.
very curious to find out who is backing this. Because, the whole Marvel, from what I understand and have been told, getting the rights to use the whole Marvel thing is a real pain in the butt. So I'm really curious who the financial backer is. Not the developer, but the actual financial backers. Because they've got to have pretty deep pockets to get it in the first place, in my opinion. I mean, I'd be very surprised to find if they're just some little small group. I mean, you're talking a pretty big name stake here. I mean, when the whole Marvel versus Capcom stuff came out, they had to pay lots of money for those rights. The developers did.
Yeah, there's no real publisher information here. I mean, you pretty much have Gazillion, and you've got Real Secret Identity Studios, which neither one of them is any kind of established studio. Secret Identity Studios was created for the sake of this project.
For this project, yeah. That's what I'm wondering, especially with the name Real Secret Studios or whatever it is. They've got to have. It's got to be somebody pretty big. God, that's the kind of stuff you have to really dig into, like tax records, to find out sometimes. It's pretty interesting though, because in reality, the computer software gaming industry is very, very small. And that's something I'm coming to find out working with some of these companies, is especially on the mobile platform side. I mean, there's literally like a group of 500 developers, and that's it. Those are the experts who develop, software for all the different types of stuff they do, and they just move around from company to company, project to project. And of course, there's that lovely new industry standard of being fired before the project gets finished lately, which has devastated the gaming community big time. Canceled many real big name titles. Ones that I was looking forward to too, like the new Star Wars. That one got canceled because of all that bullshit. So yeah, financial backers are becoming an interesting thing for games lately, because they haven't been able to go to the normal banks to get the loans to do this, because the whole industry sucks and has been losing money as a whole, in the U.S. anyway. Maybe that's why I wonder if that's why they went to the Korean guys, or Korean financial guy, for Gameloft. Be interesting to find out some of the backstory to some of this.
Aliens, Colonial Marines for the win. Even in jest, I can't even.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, my heart. Oh, a game with so much promise.
I feel sorry for every poor sucker who pre-purchased that thing on Steam.
Right there, that's kind of the case for
don't pre-purchase.
Why pre-orders are bad. It's like you're basically it's a practice where you're buying something sight unseen, and I mean, at least in a case where you've got a beta or a demo to try, where there's plenty of information of what the game's going to be like. Cool.
You know who had the best analogy for it? It was not one you'd normally watch. There was a different guy. He normally does car reviews, but he was ranting and raving about Colonial Marines, funny enough. And he said it's akin to buying a car via a internet advertisement when you're in a different country and having it shipped to you. Are you really getting what you ordered? That Land Cruiser you might buy, could turn out to be a Mitsubishi Miata or something like that, or your Evo 10 could turn out to be a Toyota Celica. You fucking never know. So I was like, yeah, that's a really good analogy. Would you ever really do that with something? Why would we do it with software? I at least, that Colonial Marine, well, actually there was one before Colonial Marines that made me stop doing the pre-purchases. I'm trying to remember what it was now. I'd have to look at my Steam library, but after that whole experience, I'm like, yep, not again. I will wait for the reviews, because I could wait a week or two for a game to be out for, feedback. Well, actually, Troy, you know what game recently I didn't pre-purchase, but I didn't read any reviews on or anything or know anything about it before I got it, and guess how good that turned out? Defiance.
Yeah, you got me into that game. Thanks a lot, by the way.
Well, I went back and purchased that to show you how horrible they fucked it up. That was the whole point of that, so you could do some videos and go, see what's wrong, lots. So that was the whole reason for that one. But there you go. I would not ever pre-purchase that one either, based on that experience.
Yeah, I guess it's gotten better. I don't know. I should probably at some point update it.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'm going to say that I had fun, but I think most of the fun I had was because you and me were playing it, not necessarily because of the game itself.
That's exactly what I would agree with.
It was...
I was making fun of the horribly bad UI and whatnot. That was actually kind of interesting. Trying to figure out what the fuck was wrong, you know? So, I don't know. It's definitely... They make so much goddamn money off of it, though, you know, the pre-orders. It's unbelievable how much money they make.
Yeah, it's pretty pretty
it's
crazy. Pre-orders, you know, okay, there's some nasty, but I don't mind. I guess I'm kind of torn when it comes to pre-orders, because there are some games that I know I'm going to get because either I trust the company or I've done enough looking into the game that I know I'm going to buy it or whatever. But the thing that annoyed me, I'm going to go to a game that I knew I was going to buy, right? And that was Batman Arkham City.
Okay.
Because I loved Asylum so much. And I had seen the footage. I knew the game was going to be like Asylum, but with the open world. The combat was mostly the same. I'm like, you know what? That's what I loved about it. I'm going to purchase this game. Let's just pre-purchase it. And then they pulled this promotion thing where you had to get an order from a specific location to get certain types of pre-order bonuses. Yeah. If you got it from GameStop, you got the Joker's sub-map. Okay, that's fine. If you got it from... However, if you got it from Best Buy, you got the Robin DLC, which is what I wanted because he's another character. I figured I could always just download the challenge map later if I wanted to. Might not, because as much as I had fun with the challenge modes, that really wasn't what I was looking at. So you're basically getting one thing or the other, and they're exclusive. You can't get both. And then there's other pre-order bonuses that were costumes. Now, costumes, whatever, I can deal with that. But the whole idea is that you're looking at 3 or 4 different... Actually, it was more than that, because there were several costumes that were involved.
There were 5.
And so you basically, if you wanted to get everything, you had to buy the game 5 times.
Yeah.
Thankfully, obviously it would eventually become DLC, but then again, that goes down to the point of, wait a minute, this content was done as the game was released.
Why am I paying for it now?
And they're withholding this content to sell you again later. Now, a challenge map, that's pushing it. Skins, whatever, don't care so much.
Yeah.
But we're talking about a character that was taken out. Yeah. But what I found out later is that character was only for challenge maps. But the thing is that character kind of doubles the content you're getting out of the challenge maps, because you're playing the game once as Batman, then you can play it again as Robin. That's a whole different amount of content compared to one challenge map or a costume. I ended up buying the game from Best Buy, even though I didn't want to. I wanted to go ahead and purchase it at my local GameStop. But, I think something like that becomes a kind of a nasty practice, and that could be taken to interesting lengths, and I would be afraid of where they could take it, and I'm afraid that because game companies are basically being rewarded for having people pre-order, like Aliens Colonial Marine, they got tons of money for that game, released a shit product.
Well, that's the problem, is the quality of the products being released is going to directly be impacted. So, well, a great example, again, going back to cars, if you go out and you want to buy a BMW M3 from Ralph Champ, okay, they put a little Champ emblem on the back of it, but mechanically there is no difference between buying that car somewhere else. So why software-wise is it? Why when I buy a piece of software package from Best Buy, versus GameStop, why am I getting a different play experience? Yeah, that's my argument too. And I completely disagree with that. Again, but that's going back to grassroots, the DLC, DRM stuff. You know, they have the capability, so they're abusing it. And that's what the problem is. And yeah, I'm wondering if this comes down to their financial bean counter saying we need to squeeze every lemon, you know, every piece of the lemon we can to get the money, because you know it's getting hard to get financial backers for game industries now because they keep fucking us over and we're less hesitant to buy the games. That's the other thing they keep coming, because you were talking about. I thought it was kind of interesting. You talked about using a cookie cutter game engine to make smaller or shorter, lower price dollar games. They've been doing that. Obviously, they've been charging the same amount of money, which is the problem. They charge full price for something when they shouldn't be.
Right. There's that problem too.
There's also a big dilemma that has happened with just about everything we've touched as human beings when we start to do that cookie cutter process of overall the quality of the product gets reduced every iteration you make of that smaller version, because you keep creating the same damn thing and you keep fussing around with it, and all of a sudden, oh, I know what this is. Yeah, this was probably the best purchase on Steam I have ever made. Yeah, you should tell the people what you're doing here.
Well, I figured if we're going to be sitting here talking, might as well give people something to look at least.
Exactly.
This is Sleeping Dogs, which was a game from Square Enix. Originally started life as a game in the True Crime series, I believe. I forget which company started it, but they didn't eventually finish it, and Square Enix picked it up. But because they didn't have the True Crime license, they rebranded it as Sleeping Dogs.
And it wasn't really heavily advertised here in the U.S. Wasn't really didn't have a huge sales. Actually, their sales numbers weren't very large because of it, but it is a phenomenal game. And again, this is one of those that is not a cookie cutter engine. They developed this when I found out when Squeenix got it. They basically said your engine is crap because the previous one was a cookie cutter engine, and we redeveloped the engine for this specifically.
It went. Hold on, it went white. Problem is Open Broadcaster OBS is not. Unfortunately, not seeing it as a game source.
Interesting. Well,
I've heard there's a problem with that. I might be able to do it with XSplit, but it would go into mono. So it looks like if I'm going to do screen capture, I can't put it into full screen.
Oh.
So right now it's basically in windowed mode right now instead of actual full screen. But that should work.
We can see your porn now. Cool.